And here's a quick update for you from Israel. The plan that I proposed, written about, and blogged about, messaged about on social media, and spoken about with people in different live streams and Discord, etc., and YouTube and whatnot. The plan seems to be pretty much popular with everyone that I've mentioned it to, everyone that I've spoken with about it, at least obviously people who are pro-Israel, but not necessarily extreme right-wingers or anything like that. A lot of moderate people and even left-wing people, they have agreed that it is a sound plan and it makes a lot of sense. And just as John Spencer, the American expert on urban warfare, explained in his interview on trigonometry, borders changing is a consequence of war. So people should not be surprised if that happens. And I completely agree with that. That's why, before I even saw that interview, obviously I've been writing about and posting about this idea. And it seems to be that the idea is working its way up through the channels. I can't say anything more than that at the moment, because nothing's official yet, obviously. But it is definitely making progress. So I am, cautiously optimistic that we will see some progress on this in the relatively short term. And for now, Israel continues to progress with its plan. There are many brave men and women who've been called up for reserves, and obviously a lot of active duty soldiers who've been sent to carry out the plan established by the political echelon of the Israeli government and the war cabinet to take over Gaza City, which again, I don't think strategically it's a good idea to occupy the land and to be technically taking over that area in that way. I think it's important to literally annex the unpopulated areas and keep doing that as the areas continue to be more and more depopulated, right? And of course, establish the border at the new areas each time Israel takes more land and annexes it. And again, I think if that were made clear that that is the impending cost of not releasing all of the hostages and surrendering their arms, I think that Hamas and their supporters will quickly surrender. Because, as I've said from the beginning, the one thing, at least that they publicly say that they fear more than anything, is losing land. They do not want to lose land, right? Their whole thing is from the river to the sea. So, to them, losing an inch is like an unbearable price that they don't want to do. Especially that they've lost already so much land compared to the land they could have had in 1948, when Israel was reestablished as a state, and when Palestine could have had a state, but the Arabs chose not to. The Arabs could have had a state called Palestine, and they refused. Right? So, since that time, they have lost more and more land in the 1948-1949 war, and again in 56, and again in 67, and again in 73. So every time they've launched wars at us, major wars, we have taken land. Even in Lebanon, although we didn't annex the land, in the 80s, when Israel had to invade Lebanon to deal with the PLO, etc., it did take control of South Lebanon for about 20 years or so, 18 years. And so, basically, there is a cost to launching a war against Israel, just as there is a cost to launching a war against anyone that ends up defeating the aggressor. And frankly, like I said before, even aggressors take land, right? I mean, look, as I said, pointed out in the current war right now between Russia and Ukraine, Russia is clearly the aggressor that started the war. Kinetically, you can argue with me, diplomatically, politically, whatever. Kinetically, Russia invaded Ukraine, not the other way around. Kinetically, Russia started the war, and Russia has taken land from the Ukrainians. And Russia, if they are allowed to keep the land that they've already taken from Ukraine, will essentially have won a prize for starting an illegal war. Um, just because they were aggressors, just because Putin was an aggressor and decided he wanted to take Ukraine. And as much of it as he's taken, about a fifth of Ukraine right now is in Russian hands. And that's a result of his aggressions, his belligerence. And nobody's saying that he can't keep that. Okay. Okay. I got a little there. Anyway, so Russia itself has been aggressing against Ukraine and has taken land. And nobody is saying they don't have the right to annex the land if the war were to end today. And of course, Ukraine wants it back. But everyone is saying, well, realistically, Ukraine is going to have to give up some land. Personally, I don't see why they do. They didn't start the war. If I were Ukraine, I'd say, well, no, you don't get the land. If we can keep fighting you and taking the land back, we will. But of course, that's a choice and calculation that Ukraine has to make for their own defense and their own national interests. But Israel was attacked, and Israel has taken control of land. And Israel, therefore, has every right, unquestionably. If it's okay for Ukraine to take, for Russia to take land in a war that they started, it's certainly okay for Israel to annex land in a war that Israel did not start. Anyway, folks, that's going to do it for now. I'll catch up with you guys later. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good one. Stay safe. Peace.